Hello and welcome to the Center for Spiritually Integrated Arts, a Centers for Spiritual Living teaching center. I am Reverend Dr. Raymont Anderson. I am the founder and the spiritual director. Now, as you are sitting there joining us, you may have questions, any number of questions, such as, who am I? How did I get here? Spiritually integrated arts means what exactly? What is a teaching center? Well, what is Centers for Spiritual Living? What is that? What does that even mean? Or New Thought, or religious science, or science of mind and spirit? You may have any number of questions about this specific community, about the parent organization, CSL, our philosophy, our teaching, our liberation theology. Any number of questions. Feel free to send an email. We look forward to connecting more and building our virtual community, our global community. And if you haven't connected yet on social media, feel free to do so. This is your invitation now. Also, did you know that all of our Sunday messages are archived on our YouTube channel? You can watch it anytime. Now, questions about anything, such as becoming a member. What does that mean? What does membership entail? And if you live somewhere far and already belong to a spiritual community, can you be a member of more than one? The simple answer is yes, you can. Just like you can shop at more than one grocery store, you can attend or be a member of more than one gym. We are building beloved community. So you can do both. You can be a member of both. You can be involved with both. That's what being in spiritual community means. So we welcome you. We invite you. We are so appreciative that you have found this community and that you have joined us today. We bless you. We love you. We welcome you. Live long and prosper. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the rest of our Sunday message. Love you. Connect with you soon. Blessings. Hello and welcome. It's November already. Wow. So, November, we are talking about the mundane, the sacred, and the profane. Oh my. That is our theme for the month. Today, we are specifically talking about the mundane sigh. But based upon the theme, for the remainder of the month, what we are doing is we are following in this exploration. Last month, we talked about the paradox, playing in the paradox, exploring the paradox, the both and versus the either or, all of that stuff. And now this month we are going to explore the various ways that we put life into certain compartments. We categorize life. We separate it, we judge it, we prioritize it, but it's based upon a certain perception of what's most important versus least important. And oftentimes, that is not the most effective way of approaching life because there are things that we make out to be more important. Meditation is more important than washing the dishes. But is it? If you wash dishes mindfully and washing the dishes becomes a meditation, then is washing the dishes less important? And isn't washing the dishes a necessary process in cleanliness and sanitation? If you're going to eat off of those dishes, then isn't that also a priority? See where I'm going? Okay. So this month we are going to examine the boringness of life, the mundane, the stuff, the oh my goodness, versus the things that we perceive to be sacred, the various rules and practices that go within the category of this is sacred. And then there's the this is what's profane. This is what's secular, meaning it's not spiritual. If you recall, a couple of weeks ago, we talked about secular versus spiritual versus religious versus. We're going to dive deeper into what is this sacred, mundane, profane, etc. How does all of this come together into this thing that we refer to as our lives? And we are going to, if all things fall into place accordingly, we're going to have an aha moment. And that moment being, we are going to realize, wait a minute, God is all there is. Then washing the dishes, doing laundry, picking up the puppy's poop on the sidewalk, it's all spiritual practice. It's all living this thing called life. And this thing called life, there is only one life, and that life is God. And therein lies the key. So the mundane sigh, today's specific topic. Are you a parent? Do you know children? If you know children, then you are familiar with the phrase, I'm bored. Bored. Want something to do. And then you give them something to do, and it's not what they want to do, but they can't tell you what they really want to do. What do you want to do? I don't know. Well, go outside. No, I don't want to go outside. Ride your bike. I don't want to ride my bike. Read a book. I don't want to read a book. Watch television. I'm bored. So we breathe, because how often do we as adults, we may not say it, and we certainly may not say it that way, but is it not very similar that I don't want to meditate? I don't want to take a class. I don't want to go to that meeting. I don't know what I want to do, but I know I don't want to do that. Breathe. So we want to live a life that's effective. We want to live a life in joy. We want to live a life in bliss. We want to live a life that is an imagined idea. We want there to be excitement 24/7 hours a day, 24 hours, 7 days a week, 24/7. You can't. It doesn't work that way. Life, like breath, is a rise and a fall, an inhale and an exhale. There are moments for excitement, and then there are moments to be still. There are times when we do things that feel very meaningful, and then there are times we're going to do things they don't feel meaningful, but that doesn't mean they aren't. There is a right, as it says in the Bible, to everything there is a season, a time. To everything, turn, breathe. Because if we're going to move through this thing called life in the most effective way, then it means riding the waves in all of the ways that they show up. Not just dissing the dishes because it's something we don't want to do. Shopping is just shopping. It certainly isn't sacred. It's a mundane activity. cooking. It's an everyday Monday. Breathe. Because all of these things can be an entry point into a deeper spiritual, mystical, divine experience. But we have to be willing. We have to know that life is so much more than just the categories and the departments or compartments that we place everything in, the nice little neat Tupperware, so that everything stacks perfectly. This is work, this is school, this is spirituality. That's not life, right? There's this myriad of mixing and swishing and swirling of life. And our invitation is to recognize that even the quote unquote mundane activities are in and of themselves sacred when we approach them as though they are. I'm bored. What is boredom? Boredom, this idea is, which is a common psychological or emotional feeling, is generally this idea of being unsatisfied. I'm disinterested in or uninterested in. I don't have a desire. I don't have an interest in that. I got you. I got you. And sometimes boredom can occur when our energy is ebbing for a variety of reasons. Sometimes we're sleepy, and I don't want to do that, so I'm bored. But really, what I want is sleep. This is one reason why a lot of times when we are immersed in grief, we're bored with everything. And it's because our energy simply isn't there. So we want to be invited to learn how to conserve our energy and then thereby directing our energy into various other activities, various other tasks. But in order to do this, the first thing we have to do is recognize, what is this I feel? Oh, it's boredom. The very first thing is awareness. Are we aware that what we are feeling is boredom? And in there, are we aware that the reason we feel boredom is because I'm not interested in this activity? Why am I not interested in the activity? Did someone volunteer me and I didn't want to be voluntold? Is it an activity that I thought was going to be fun, but it turned out that it wasn't? Am I able to dissect my boredom to identify what's causing it, creating it, inspiring it, and let the ripples go so that I can get completely aware, because I can't change what I'm not aware of. I can't change what I'm not willing to be aware of. And sometimes stepping into this arena of exploring our boredom is uncomfortable. We talked about that before, being comfortable with the discomfort. So when boredom shows up, how do you manage it? What do you do when boredom shows up? How aware are you of it when it shows up? How do you steward your energy when it shows up? Sometimes we're very unaware, and so when boredom kicks in, we daydream. When boredom kicks in, our energy dips and we get sleepy, we get tired, we get droopy, we get silly. When boredom kicks in, we're sitting in a meeting and we start doodling. Oh, sorry, I got distracted. I got bored there for a minute. If we're more aware of this occurring, then we can start to shift our energy, reinvigorate ourselves, resurrect ourselves, our energy, our desire, our intention, our vision. What is it about this meeting? I'm at work. What is it about this meeting that I'm bored? Is it the speaker's monotone way of presenting the material, that it's droning and it's hypnotic and it's making?
Sleepy. Ooh. What is it? Is it the material itself? Because once again, when we are able to identify it, some things we can change. I can't change the way that person is speaking, but I can change how I engage. Maybe it means asking more questions. Maybe it means switching up how I'm taking notes. Something, but I can't change what I'm not aware of. So once again, we are invited into this space of what is my boredom giving me the opportunity to learn about myself? Layman Pang says, how miraculous and wondrous hauling water and collecting firewood. You said what? Remember the phrase, chop wood, carry water, before enlightenment. Chop wood, carry water, after enlightenment. The chop wood, carry water, the hauling water, collecting firewood, the laundry, the dishes, it's all the same. Enlightenment doesn't change the activity. How we approach the activity is what invites us into or keeps us out of the realm of quote unquote enlightenment. When I realize that chopping wood and carrying water in and of itself is spiritual practice, and in and of itself is the path to and through and as enlightenment, then I can say truly how miraculous and how wondrous it is to chop wood, to carry water, to do laundry, to mop the floor. And we breathe. Because in this space, we realize it's all sacred, not simply mundane, because this idea of it being mundane, it's boring, it's humdrum, it's dull, and any of these other things. And all of these things we separate and once again categorize as these activities are not spiritual, they are not sacred, they're mundane activities. So repetitious, over, wax on, wax off, wax on, wax off. It is so repetitious and tiresome and tedious until the moment Daniel realizes this is karate. How wondrous and how amazing. But prior to that realization, this is so boring, tiresome. Before karate, wax on, wax off. After karate, wax on, wax off. Are we willing to move through this idea of just because it's repetitious or tedious or boring doesn't mean it's not sacred? Sharon Salzberg says, being aware of whatever we are experiencing with a peaceful attitude allows us not to be driven into restlessness. That space of restlessness, boredom, the tedious, it's, I can't sit still, I'm restless. I need somewhere to channel my energy. Being aware of whatever we are experiencing. What am I experiencing while sitting in the meeting, while doing laundry, while grieving, while being angry? What am I experiencing? And in the experience, how do I bring serenity and peacefulness, an attitude, an atmosphere of peacefulness to the experience so that the restlessness might be quieted and might be stilled, even if only for 10 seconds. I move into a space of presence that then gives me the ability to proceed in the most effective, life-affirming way possible. So if I ask you, what time zone do you live in? What do you say? However, I do not mean Pacific, Mountain, Central, or Eastern. I mean, what time zone? Are you in the past? Are you in the future? Or are you in the present? Which time zone are you in? Because as Emmett Fox says, the art of life is to live in the present moment. And that peacefulness, that peaceful attitude that Sharon Salzberg is referring to happens in the present. It happens right now. How do we bring our living into this time zone right now? Well, as the present says, be present to the present. And if we want to get fancy, allow your presence to be present in the present. And what you find is the universe, which you are, will present you with a present. You say, what now? Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Breathe. Are you willing to accept the gift, the present, that the present moment affords you when you are present in the now? Dr. Holmes says, we should not look forward to a hereafter without activity. You know, sitting on some cloud playing harp. I don't know why this is a violin, playing the harp. But to a place where our work will be done in greater harmony with the divine law because of greater understanding. So we shouldn't look forward to some other time, some other place, but rather to that place, that presence where our work is done in the most life-affirming manner, in the most life-affirming alignment, in greater harmony with the creative process and divine law. And this happens because of our deeper, greater, more profound awareness and understanding. How many of us were raised with this idea of heaven somewhere, some other? And yet, one of our Declaration of Principles, care of Dr. Holmes, says, we believe that heaven is within us and that we experience it to the degree that we become conscious of it. Heaven within our consciousness then becomes externalized through all that we do and all that we are. Are you aware of that? Or is that still part of your process? Because if it's still part of your process, it becomes part of every process, even the mundane activities. Mark Dunn says, as we gradually wake up, we wake up to what already exists in the mind of God. And because we wake up to it, it appears to us, to which I would add, we wake up to what already exists in the mind that is God, and because we wake up to it, it appears as us. There is only one mind, and that mind is God, and what it is, we are. The mind that we use is the mind that is God. There is only it. And so when we wake up to it, we realize we are it. So when you can be in that space of heaven, peacefulness, whatever that is, then you start to live in accordance with that, and you find peacefulness even in the most tedious of activities. Dr. Holmes reminds us that Jesus taught the disciples and the people who followed him, blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. And what he meant was, they will see God right here, right now. This morning, this afternoon, this evening, this moment, this breath. There is only the now. Breathe. So pause and ask yourself in this moment, do I see God? And when you say yes or no, where are you looking? What are you looking at? What are you looking for? What are you looking from? Because if you're looking from God, you can't help but to see God everywhere as everything. No matter what you see, no matter what you touch, God, source, spirit. But the question is, are you looking for it as though it is external to you? Are you looking from it because it's what you are? When we are looking from the consciousness of God, then it's easier to take the mundane activities of life, flip it. The activity may not change, but our consciousness regarding it does. The way we approach it does. It's still wax on, wax off. It's still the same activity, but our awareness, now knowing that this is karate, finds greater, maybe excitement, but if not that, at least greater willingness to continue because we know what it's doing for us. We know what it's creating within us. We know how it's changing who and what we are. So, yes, it is tedious and repetitious and dull, but it serves a higher purpose when our awareness recognizes that this morning, this moment, right now. And after all, isn't that how we create a world that works for all? Moment by moment, recognizing that some of the most tedious things, the most boring things, are the very things that change culture, that change consciousness. Getting into certain conversations, that's how we end the consciousness of war. Engaging in certain relationships, that's how we eliminate the consciousness of colonization. It takes engaging fully in every activity from the awareness, I am spirit. I am the very individualized experience, the very individualized incarnation of the absolute. So no matter what I'm doing, I'm just shopping for eggs. Oh, I'm just going to the hardware store to buy nails. No, there is no I'm just doing. It's I'm buying nails. And in the buying of the nails, I understand the nails represent there is a certain process whereby this nail, when hammered into, it joins something, it secures something, making something stronger. And when I realize that, then I'm able to say, this is part of the process. This is part of spiritual practice. No matter what it is, mopping the floor, cleaning. When I am mopping the floor, cleaning the floor, can I recognize that this mirrors the manner in which I clean my consciousness, clean my mental equivalent? Sometimes we go out in the world and people deposit footprints and crumbs in our atmosphere. And so, in the same way that we mop the floor or sweep the porch, we mop our mind, we sweep our heart in order to clean ourselves of the footprints, of the crumbs that the collective consciousness might deposit as we engage. This is how we create a world that works for all. So how do you practice as Hugh High says in Sudden Awakening into the Way, how do you practice? I eat and sleep. Just pause right there. This is one reason why one of our symbols for this community, the spiritually integrated arts community, SIA, is the unalome, because it spirals and it's this ever moving process into the creative process and into enlightenment and the whatever you want to call it. But the practice is I eat and sleep. How then do you differ the ordinary deluded people? Ordinary people, when sleeping and eating, are bound by 100 ropes, he says. When sleeping, they don't sleep. When eating, they don't eat, because they are constantly thinking about 1,000 things. Hence, there is a difference. In other words, there's this group of people, which he is referring to as the ordinary deluded people, which we will refer to as those who are bound by 100 ropes of the collective consciousness. They don't know who they are. They don't know what they are. They are simply operating based upon this rote routine, gotta do every day, same old thing, right? They don't know. And then there's this group that does know. I know that I am an individualized expression of God. I know, and I have a spiritual practice that I am deeply engaged in that makes my living more effective. It affects all of my relationships in a life affirming, nurturing, loving manner. What separates these two? The consciousness. This group, they are ruminating. Their time zone is the past. Woulda, coulda, shoulda. Oh, there's regret and there's shame about what was and what wasn't and what could have been but didn't. And they're ruminating about, oh man, tomorrow I've got a checklist, gotta do, gotta plan, oh, there's so much yet to be. Oh, and. Whereas this group, while sometimes forward and backward time zones, we travel. We are more grounded in the present. This is why he says, this group, when they sleep, they don't sleep because their minds are always going. When they eat, they don't eat because their minds are always going. They can't truly be present to each flavor and each taste and each texture because their minds are always running. Past or present, past or future, not present. Because if they're present, then they're eating. When they're sleeping, they're sleeping. There's no need to toss and turn because the mind is I sleep restfully. I awaken and I feel rested because my mind is quiet and I am in the present. So I ask, how do you practice? Breathe. We use all sorts of labels, and that is fine. This is not about eliminating the labels, right? We use them for linguistic convenience. It is when we have become more enamored by the label than what the label is representing. That's when we start to lose our way. The labels of Christian, Muslim, Jew, atheist, Satanist, these labels that we compartmentalize and categorize and separate ourselves based upon. Rather than stepping into the vastness of life's buffet, we are content with our plate of peas and potatoes and steak, while making the vegetarian or the vegan some kind of antichrist. What do you mean you don't eat meat? What kind of devil worship? It's just stupid. Based on what? You eat animals. you kill them and eat them, right? How stupid is that? And so we are then at odds rather than saying, your path is your path. I may not understand it. I may not necessarily agree. But do I have to other you to the point of we can no longer come together peacefully? Today, we are invited to pivot from othering and pivoting with this obsession with the labels. Now, recognize, yes, I am Black or African American. I am a person of color, and I expect you to see color, right? I'm not saying, oh, Ray said get rid of all labels, so I don't see color. No, no, no. See the color, but do not become so enamored by it, so obsessed with it, that you lose sight of all of who I am. There are various intersections that make me me. My Blackness is one, my gayness is two, my nerdiness is three, and on and on and on. And what I am saying is, see the label and all of the essence that that label represents. See the label and all the essence that it represents as a let me envelop and pull you closer into relationship rather than push away because of the label, rather than push away because of the perception of what the label represents. So today we pivot into and we explore if it's all God, if they too are God, then what am I invited to be and what am I invited to do? So when I see my Muslim siblings, if they too are God, doesn't matter what their religious, spiritual path is. We're talking about how I see them, how I relate to them. And if I say they too are God because God is all there is, then what am I invited to be in relationship with them? What am I invited to do in relationship with them? And that's the same for my atheist siblings, my fundamentalist Christian siblings, the siblings that are in the clan, all of them. If they too are God, what am I invited to be and to do in relationship? How do I move through the mundane aspect of simply label, the routine and repetitious manner in which we slap on a label and keep it stepping? They're Black, they're gay, they're lesbian, they're trans, slap a label, and we oversimplify who someone is based upon the label. That's not relationship building. That's not going to create a world that works for all. So, what am I invited to be and do? What are you invited to be and to do if they too are God? Breathe. Today's affirmation or declaration, I will say it first. And if you feel that this is in alignment with you as well, say it with me on the second go round. I find and recognize the sacred in everything. Together. I find and recognize the sacred in and as everything. And so it is. This week's questions for the Thursday night discussion group. And if you don't join that particular group, which you are invited to, here are your journal questions. 1. What is a mundane task that you dislike? How can you practice and remind yourself to be more conscious, to be more present, to be more mindful as you engage in that task? Number 2, what are the thoughts that draw you away from being in the present moment? And what does it mean to trust that in spirit all is well? Yeah, I'm tempted to say something now, but I will refrain. I will let you discuss it and journal about it. And then lastly, number 3, this week you are invited to experiment with setting aside a specific time for you to worry, for you to plan, for you to grieve, for you to be angry, and any other things that the monkey mind, that the rational or irrational mind, doesn't matter, whatever these things are, set aside a particular time to say, for this 3 minutes, I will completely give into what is worry. Rather than fighting it and denying it, which many of us in New Thought tend to do, because we are conditioned to believe that we're supposed to be happy all the time. Give yourself 3 minutes or 5 minutes to be in the space of whatever that is. Be angry, curse, yell, scream, punch pillows, whatever it is you need to do for that 5 minutes. And then sit back, write it out. What did you feel before? What did you feel during? What did you feel after? What does it mean to give yourself the space in the present moment to fully go there and get it out? Now, that doesn't mean it's gone. It simply means that in this time frame that I am setting aside, I am allowing myself to cry because I'm sad, to curse because I'm angry. And then having gotten it out, now I can go to my meeting. Now I can teach my class. Now I can meditate, whatever it is. Give yourself that space. And then let your mind simply be at peace. What does it mean to simply let your mind be at peace? Having given yourself the space to handle all of those distracting thoughts and feelings that we tend to deny and suppress and judge, what does it mean to be at peace? That peaceful attitude that Sharon Salzberg talked about. Breathe. As we enter into that space of prayer, simply recognizing the isness and allness of God is everything and everywhere. It's all there is. And so it must be right where we are, right here, right now. It always has been. It always will be. Even after this bodily form has been surrendered, that which we are as God is eternal, it is infinite, and it is ever expanding, which means so are we. So we breathe and allow all of our activities this week that we might be tempted to call boring, mundane, blah, whatever that is, we step into it with a greater awareness of our divinity. And even when simply washing dishes, we recognize that washing dishes is a spiritual practice. How miraculous. How amazing, how awesome to know that everything we do is the meditation cushion, driving mindfully, doing laundry consciously, having conversation with someone. We don't really know them, but we are communing as we converse, as we communicate. God with God, as God, to God, from God, through God. It's all God. So we breathe and allow this gratitude to know this gratitude of, that divine sigh. Because the sigh doesn't need to be, The sigh can be a sigh of relief, a sigh of joy, a sigh of pleasure, a sigh of release, and a sigh of peacefulness. And so we sigh. And the law says yes. So we know that this is already answered prayer. It is already done. It is already so. So together we say, and so it is. Namaste, Amen, Ashe, Aho. Much love and blessings for those of you who are joining us in the After Message Fellowship. See you over in Zoom.